To all the families and loved ones who still feel the ache of that missing piece of your soul, I'm honored to be here with you once more to share this solemn rite of remembrance and reflect on all that was lost in the fire and ash on that terrible September morning, and all that we found in ourselves to respond. 21 years ago, 21 years, and we still kept our promise, never forget. We'll keep the memory of all those precious lives stolen from us. 2,977 at Ground Zero in New York and Shanksville, where my wife is speaking now, in Pennsylvania. 184 of them here at the Pentagon. And I know for all those of you who've lost someone, 21 years is both a lifetime and no time at all. It's good to remember. These memories help us heal, but they can also open up the hurt and take us back to that moment when the grief was so raw. You think of everything they could have done if they had lived and just had a little more time. The experience you missed together, the dreams they never got to fulfill or realize. I remember a message sent to the American people from Queen Elizabeth. It was on September 11. Her ambassador read a prayer of service at St. Thomas Church in New York, where she poignantly reminded us, quote, "Grief is the price we pay for love. Grief is the price we pay for love."
Hey, y'all, welcome. It is episode 145. This is the G Podcast. And, every year we do this, and it's just, 21 years. I remember being, just moved back to Georgia from Dallas, Texas, and just walking past our big screen and looking over at the big screen and saying, what the hell is going on? And it's just amazing. And I live in a household now where, I've got all the generations. I think we got Boomer, X, Y, and Z. So it's like the Z is at that point where it's like 9/11, what that? It's the only way they're learning is through us and through school. It's just amazing. 21 years. But definitely for those, especially for those who were in New York at the time, and Tanya B, you were, it was just harrowing. It was something out of a movie, and in the other locations on the plane, But 21 years has passed, and I like the way Biden tied in Queen Elizabeth's statement made on that day, just to tie in the fact that she passed this week. But, again, for those of you who were impacted and still impacted by 9/11, definitely our thoughts and prayers go out to you. Tanya B., you have something to say? Go ahead. I'll throw it to you.
No, I really didn't. And just to since you asked me, I'll just say this. This is for me. I was there in the thick of it. I saw some of it. I smelled it. I didn't live too far from Ground Zero at that time, and I just remember all the chaos, all the sadness, the missing persons. I guess the center was at the end of the block where I lived in New York as well. And I just say I smelled death. I could not explain what it smelled like to you. I just know it's something I don't want to smell anymore. Number one. Number two is I really don't need to be, and I'm sure I'm one of thousands of people, whether you're in New York at the Pentagon or even in Pennsylvania. It's like today was a day I did not turn the TV on. Actually, it started last night. And
Mm.
I don't need to be reminded of that because honestly for me it's still a trigger. And I have, close friends and family members who actually worked in those towers that got out, within seconds of losing their lives. So
Yeah.
for me this is a day And again, I get it, and I just equate it to the Kennedys or the King family having to listen to everything that is done
Mm,
on MLK's birthday, and why celebrate the anniversary of somebody's murder or death? But for
mm.
me, today's a day is kind of melancholy. But I honestly, I don't want to hear it. And I don't think I'm the only
Wow.
person that feels like that. I reached out to the community of people that I was working with at the time in New York, and we all agreed I don't need to watch TV. I was in it. I was there, and that's
Wow.
just how I feel about it.
Interesting perspective. Interesting
Yeah.
perspective. Because, yeah,
You had
I
to
hear
be
you.
there. You had to
Yeah,
be there.
you did. You did. Well, y'all, episode 145. This is the G Podcast. I'm your host, Tommy B. And again, hard to believe, 21 years since 9/11. Again, we've got 21 years and just an entire generation who wasn't, oblivious to what happened. But each week we do news, politics, pop culture, that piping hot tea from the one and only Tanya B. You heard her name, host of the Bird Wire every Friday and Saturday night, 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. and Saturdays at noon. We'll get to you in a minute, Tanya B. My brother from another mother is back. Let me make sure I got it because it's been a minute. So let me find. Yeah, I got to dig up a big applause because it's been a minute, man. I
Hey,
mean,
it ain't been that long, bro.
it's been a minute. You've been on vacay. But welcome back, my brother from another mother, the pride of Mary Persons High School, Forsyth, Georgia, country commentator is back in the building. And y'all, we have a very special guest, and I'm just going to jump right into it. Um, uh, and I'm really, you guys know, if you listen to the podcast often enough, how much I complain about voting and voting rights. And I'm really fortunate to have Abdul Dasunmu on the show. Dasunmu on the show. He is founder and chief strategist of the Young Black Lawyers Organizing Coalition. It is a nonpartisan. God bless his soul for for somehow calling it nonpartisan, but I understand. But I totally understand. And it is an organization created to inform, educate, and prepare Black voters, and from really avoiding the pitfalls of voter suppression. And we happen for those of we all live Abdul in the state of Georgia. Tanya B travels quite a bit, but when it comes down to it, we're in the state of Georgia, and Georgia is one of the states you actually your organization is focused on. But let me give you your round of applause, man.
Thank you for having me. Wanted to be
And, and
here.
and we can't get you started without the air horn as well. So yeah, that's how we do things around
I
here.
was
But
hoping I would get that. I was hoping.
but you're in Dallas, and by the end of the interview, by the way, I'm going to ask you about the Cowboys. I want to give you a heads up before we end this interview. But Abdul, your organization, man. One thing I like about the information you guys have on your site is you really have a concise checklist for the audience to go on, take a look at, and really kind of sum up their situation when it comes down to voting. Can you share that information with our podcast audience?
Absolutely. Well, before I do that, let me just thank you. Thank all of you for the opportunity to share the platform and to share this information with your audience. It's an honor to be here, and I don't take it for granted. Um, as you mentioned, I lead the Young Black Lawyers Organizing Coalition, and our mission really is, as you described it, to make sure that our communities are empowered with the resources that they need to protect their right to vote at election time. And so, what we've done is we've rolled out a checklist, and actually, we rolled this out in 2020 during that critical election. That we really encourage voters everywhere. I know you're based in Georgia and we're Georgia focused, but we really encourage voters everywhere to take heed to this checklist. And the first thing is we encourage voters, obviously, to register to vote, right? So the first step in the process is to make sure you are a registered voter if you are eligible to vote. The second step, and I find it critical to mention this, is that we really encourage you to confirm and continuously monitor your voter registration status, right? So I know many of your listeners are folks who've been voting for a long time. They are frequent voters. But sometimes when we've been doing something a long time, we don't really tend to it as much as we should. And
Mm-hmm.
in this landscape of voter suppression, that's something we cannot afford. And particularly in Georgia, where in the last decade or so, we have seen efforts at voter purging. And so folks show up to the polls thinking they're on the rolls and they're not. What we want to do is really encourage people to get into the habit, make it a practice to continuously monitor their voter registration status. So even if you've been voting for 30 years, we want you to regularly, whether it's every quarter or some consistent period of time, to make sure you are monitoring and double checking and triple checking your voter registration status. Third thing we want to encourage, vote early, right? So part of voting early, part of the protection that voting early gives you is against the vicissitudes of life. And so on election day, which is Tuesday, November 8th, any number of things could happen in your life. You know, you got to deal with child care, you got to deal with elder care, you got to run some critical errands. Maybe the weather's not great, maybe you can't get off of work in time. And so what we want to do is encourage people who have the option. Everyone doesn't have the option. Early voting is not a reality everywhere, but in Georgia it is. And what we want to do is encourage everybody to take advantage of early voting so that you can avoid the vicissitudes of life. And then the other thing is early voting also allows you, if you get to the polls and you encounter issues and you encounter some problems, early voting allows you the time you need to go back and cure your ballot if there are issues, or go back and address the issues that you might confront at the polls. Fourth thing we encourage is to know your rights. There are some core and fundamental rights that often get obscured, that people often don't know. You know, we don't do a great job in this country, sadly, of teaching civics.
No.
And that's an understatement. And so what we want to do is really encourage folks to know their rights. So you have the right to vote free from intimidation. You have the right to vote if you are in line by the time the polls close. You have the right to receive assistance while voting. Certainly, we've seen some efforts across the country in some of these voter suppression bills that I know we'll talk about to undermine some of those core rights, but it's important that voters go in fully aware of what their rights are. And this leads to my next point, fully aware of what they can do to protect their rights. I want everybody listening to write down this number, 866 our vote. 866 our vote. And what that allows is you to call into the election protection hotline, which is staffed by civil rights organizations, nonpartisan civil rights organizations, and lawyers across the country. You call in, you can report any issues that you're having, from the smallest issue to the largest issue, and they can provide assistance, whether it's helping you identify where your polling place is, or whether it's something more egregious, like you were experiencing voter intimidation at the polls, or you got to the polls, and this is something we see all the time, the machines weren't working, they weren't open when they were supposed to be open. Sometimes there are issues that can be escalated in court.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way that we find out about those issues is if you call and report them. So we want you to make use of that number, 866 our vote. And then the final thing we say is empower others. It is not enough to vote yourself. The call that we all have is to make sure that not only are we voting, but we are empowering our friends and families to also be part of the electoral process, because this election, more than really any democracy, is very much on the ballot.
Yes. Yeah. And, speaking of that, I'm glad you mentioned that. We witnessed what happened January 6th, 2021, where the insurrectionists stormed the Capitol. And we were told constantly, we've been told that democracy is under attack, by, our elected officials. That seems to be the mantra among the Democratic Party. And I guess my question would be, Abdul, are you concerned that with quote unquote democracy being under attack, that we don't have a voter bill passed?
It is one of my deepest concerns, that we have seen a consistent attack on our democracy, and we have not seen the kind of federal response to that attack that we should. Now, there are all kinds of dynamics, all kinds of politics for why that is. And, we can talk about, the Senate being basically 50-50, and certain members of the Senate having veto power that they are not given normally,
Yeah.
or anything that the Democrats or other forces of support for a voter bill might want to do. So there are political reasons we don't have a federal response. But you're absolutely right. Here's what we're dealing with. Everybody knows the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And often you hear people talk about how the Voting Rights Act of 1965 has been gutted and eviscerated. And it has been, but often we don't go into detail about what that actually means. So I'm just going to share a little bit about what that actually means and why it's so troubling that we don't have a federal voter bill right now. What people mean when they say the Voting Rights Act of 1965 has been gutted is they're talking in particular about Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And here's what it did. It required any state with a history of voter suppression to pre-clear any changes to their voting laws and policies with the Federal Department of Justice. So if you were a state that had a history of this kind of behavior toward voters, you had to run any and all changes to your voting laws by the federal government. Well, Shelby County v. Holder in 2013, Supreme Court case, basically said that process is no longer necessary. And they said, we've made so much progress and, we don't really need to do that anymore. Now, obviously, I know that's not true. That's not true. But that's what the Supreme Court said in Shelby. And so what they did was they basically undermined and struck down that pre-clearance requirement. And what happened is that almost overnight, the states that had previously been covered by that pre-clearance requirement started changing their voting laws and policies. And their effort was to make it harder to vote. And so that's why we're seeing all of these voter suppression bills pop up in Georgia and Texas and 34 other states across the country, because those states that were previously required to get federal pre-clearance are no longer required. So what that federal voting bill, which was called the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, would have done is it would have restored that pre-clearance requirement. And it would have brought those states back under that pre-clearance requirement. So we're in a landscape right now where the states have been given carte blanche to do whatever they want to do on voting. And
do you go ahead? No, I was going to ask you, do you think that there's a false sense of security among voters? They feel, oh, well, I can deal with the fact that I'm not allowed to receive water at the polls, or I'll just early vote. Because you and I spoke about the two parts of this. I mean, there's the part you see, and there's this element that's working behind the scenes when it comes down to organizations creating or states creating partisan organizations to overturn elections. Can you speak to that? Because I think there's a false sense of security among people, because you and I, and the other thing we mentioned was the fact that just think if SB 202 had been in place in 2020.
Absolutely.
It would have been it would have been a wrap. Raffensperger would have been unable to take the steps he took
right
to But speak to that. Speak to that.
Absolutely. Well, you really hit the nail on the head. We're dealing with two challenges. We are dealing with voter suppression, and we are dealing with election subversion. And I want to just talk a little bit about both. Voter suppression, we think we have an understanding of what it looks like. But I would argue, actually, we don't fully appreciate how deep and subversive and troubling voter suppression is. We think voter suppression is, I think many people still have the notion that voter suppression is, being required to count the number of jelly beans in a jar. Voter suppression sadly has evolved since then. And it now looks a lot different. It now looks like the state has systematically invested in our elections infrastructure. So there's not enough staff to staff the polling places. So they close polling places, and they close them mostly in our communities. That's what voter suppression looks like in 2022. Voter suppression in 2022 looks like the vast majority of people who took advantage of vote by mail in Georgia were people of color in 2020. So therefore, the state decides to make it harder to take advantage of vote by mail. They add voter ID requirements and all kinds of other issues. Voter suppression in 2022 looks like the state, some counties decided, well, actually, what we're going to do is we're going to create the opportunity for people to drop their vote by mail ballots off in drop boxes 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And the vast majority of people who took advantage of that were people of color. And now, under the state voter suppression bill in Georgia, you no longer can maintain those at those hours, right? And so the vast majority of those drop boxes are no longer as easily accessible for voters. That's what voter suppression looks like in 2022. So voter suppression is a real threat. And then the other side of the coin is also a real threat, and that's election subversion. And what election subversion looks like is exactly what we're seeing in the voter suppression bill in Georgia, which is states have now been emboldened through some of this legislation across the country, not just in Georgia, to take over local elections boards. And their targets are local elections boards in largely people of color counties, right? Or if you want to look at it from a partisan lens, often in Democratic counties. So what you're seeing is that at the state level, they have created the mechanisms by which in future elections, we've not seen it yet, but they've created the mechanisms by which in future elections, the state leadership can take over the local county elections board, and they can take any number of steps from there to subvert the outcomes of elections, right? So
Wow.
it's important to know that it's local county elections boards that certify counts, right? To the state, and then the state, typically the Secretary of State, certifies that count, the statewide count. So if you're in a scenario where the state leadership has decided they want to take over the local elections boards, then what they're doing is they're creating an opportunity for themselves to resist certifying elections, right? And to create any number of rules and policies at the local level to make it harder for people to vote, to undermine the progress that we have made on voting. So I really encourage people to pay attention to both sides of that coin, voter suppression and election subversion.
Good deal. Abdul, how can people connect with your organization and get involved with what you do?
Absolutely. So very quickly, we are mobilizing. So you've heard me talk about all the challenges, but just know that organizations like ours are out here trying to make sure that we are protecting the right to vote. So what we're doing is trying to get ahead of the crisis going into communities, going into local community institutions to educate Black voters about how to identify voter suppression and resist it, right? What they need to know to protect their right to vote in this election and in every election. So we're working in Georgia, in Texas, in South Carolina, North Carolina, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Arkansas, states, all of them that have voter suppression bills. We are working in all of those states to make sure that our communities are empowered with the resources and tools they need to protect their right to vote. So if you're interested in having us come to your community institution, your house of worship, your small business, your fraternity, your sorority chapter, please reach out to us. You can follow our work at ybloc.org. And then you can follow us on social media, all social media at Young Black BLK Lawyers. Young Black BLK Lawyers.
Man, I just want to say and give you another round of applause and just a big thanks for all the work, man, you guys are doing. Because you know what? I mean, I don't mean to be funny, man, but most Black attorneys, we talked about student loans. It's like the clock starts. I mean, seriously, the clock starts at I know many of them.
Absolutely.
And the clock starts at graduation, and then it's countdown to get a job before these loans start coming to bear. So for your efforts, man, you don't have to do this in a lot of cases. We thank you for your efforts, the best and brightest out there doing the work. Tanya B, any last minute comments or thoughts?
I just really, I thank you for coming on because I was taking notes while you were speaking and, just in educating and just taking back this information to people that I know in my community. And when you talked about suppression, just to give you a quick example, I live in Old Fourth Ward in Atlanta. And my polling place is across the street from where I live. Now, what they've just recently done, and I just happened to find this out, just in idle conversation, there is another complex right behind the voting place. But those people have to go a mile away to an abandoned school to vote. Now, if they show up at what they thought was a polling place and they're in line, and God forbid they get there, at 7:55, and then the other place is closed, I think is that not another form of suppression? And again, it's really important. And I know where I've lived for several years. I still carry my voter's registration card for Georgia in my wallet. But just like the last election in the 2020 election, I didn't think I'd have an issue, but I still took the time to call up my county board of elections. It took me 4 times to get through, so you have to be patient. That's the other thing, people, you have to be patient. You have to be a little resilient, really, because it's like the darts are out there. And just when I've been traveling, Abdul, in states up and down, the East Coast, the suppression, like you said, is in states. I've been everywhere from Massachusetts down to, say, DC, and I hear these same things and I see these ads on television and how it is just so critical for people to exercise this right and don't say, oh, well, my vote won't count. But if you have 10,000 people that think their vote doesn't count, that can really make the difference in a win or losing the election. So I just, again, I thank you for sharing and doing the work that you do. And we really need people like you because at the end of the day, a lot of our leaders or our activists, once they pass away, there is no one that's been there to pick up the torch. We don't have a Malcolm X or Dr. King. Heck, we don't even have another Al Sharpton. And okay, the king of the snatchback perm, let's call a thing. Some people will just show up when they're
the views and opinions expressed.
Okay, allegedly. But I mean, really, people that are willing to, kind of do the heavy lifting because there are people that won't show up unless there's a PR opportunity or there's a check involved. And when you're talking about, and even I talk to all you millennials and you Gen X, Y, and ABCers, understand these things that are happening now where you out there tootsie rolling and partying are going to affect your quality of life later on, and then it's going to be too late. So just,
Go on and give it up, Tanya B. Again, give it up, Abdul.
Thank you, Abdul. Thank you.
Man, he is founder and chief strategist of the Young Black Lawyers Organizing Coalition. Again, thank you so much for taking time out of your Sunday. And it's NFL Sunday, too. You know, and I'm just gonna leave you with this one comment, Abdul, because
Right.
I lived in Dallas from '94 to 2001,
Right.
and I'm an ATLian,
Right.
Atlanta born. Who needs the most therapy? Cowboys fans or Falcons fans?
Listen. I think there's an easy answer to that. It's clearly the Cowboys, but what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to get therapy and then send you all the bill.
No.
So you'll know who to call. So you'll know who to call to get therapy too.
Good stuff, man.
Send the
Because
bill to
the Falcons fans, we accept our
Oh,
losses.
Lord.
The Cowboys,
And there are many losses, and there are many losses.
every year the Cowboys say they going to the Super Bowl. Every year. We ain't said that. We ain't even said that we would.
And you know, as the season starts again, I'm just going to say this: hope springs eternal. Hope springs.
See
We are
what I'm
going
saying?
this year. We are going this year. This is our year.
I told you, see.
This is our
Hey, all I have to say is, before the conversation gets out of control, Abdul, thank you again, man, and you're welcome back anytime. We'll make sure the information's on our podcast notes, and the link to your to Y Block is actually on our website as well. So thank you, man. Thank you.
Thank you so
All
much.
right.
Thank you all.
All right, take care. All right, y'all. Let's go ahead. We'll do news with Syracuse Mike, and we'll come right back right after this. Here we go.
News team, assemble!
It's time for the Week in News with Syracuse Mike.
Dr. Anthony Fauci expects annual COVID shots to become the norm, like the flu shot.
We likely are moving towards a path with a vaccination cadence similar to that of the annual influenza vaccine, with annual updated COVID-19 shots matched to the currently circulating strains for most of the population.
Fauci's comments are based on data from vaccine manufacturers Pfizer and Moderna. White House Coronavirus Response Coordinator Dr. Ashish Jha says that a single yearly shot hinges on the lack of any new variant curveballs. Barack and Michelle Obama returned to the White House Wednesday for a ceremony to unveil their official portraits.
These portraits have a special significance because, as Joe mentioned, they will hang in the White House alongside portraits of other presidents and first ladies dating back to George and Martha.
That's the former president. The last unveiling of official portraits took place 10 years ago in 2012. By the way, the official White House portraits are separate from the National Portrait Gallery paintings that you may remember from 2018. Queen Elizabeth II, the longest reigning monarch in British history, died Thursday at the age of 96. Prince Charles became King Charles III immediately following her death. Britain's new Prime Minister Liz Truss, who just met with the Queen days ago, spoke from 10 Downing Street about the country's loss.
With the passing of the second Elizabethan age, we usher in a new era in the magnificent history of our great country, exactly as Her Majesty would have wished, by saying the words, "God save the King."
While the monarchy has its supporters and detractors, most people in the UK respected the Queen. The Queen's funeral won't take place for at least 10 days following her death. And the British national anthem, which for 7 decades was God Save the Queen, will now become God Save the King. CNN's first chief anchor, Bernard Shaw, has also died. His family says there will be a private service with a public service at a later date. Bernard Shaw was 82. A new Insider Advantage Fox 5 Atlanta poll shows Republican incumbent Governor Brian Kemp is widening his lead over Democrat Stacey Abrams. Kemp leads Abrams 50 to 42%. Kemp is even getting 10% of the black vote. And Senator Raphael Warnock now trails challenger Herschel Walker. Walker's support is 47% to Warnock's 44%.
Lord Jesus. Somebody.
No,
Can you?
it depends.
Wait a minute. That poll can't be right.
Exactly. It depends who they polled and where they polled them as well.
If it's a telephone poll, I don't know any black people who will accept a call from a random number.
I
You know what I
don't.
mean? I don't.
I don't.
So I'm just wondering the methodology and who and when they call. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead, Tanya B. I'm gonna let you finish, but I'm just saying.
No. I'm just saying again.
Well, I
if
can't
I
say-
don't recognize the number, I don't, and even, when emails come in too, I don't recognize them. They look the least bit suspect. One character is out of order. Do not click on it. It could be the devil incarnate, dressed in red. Catch that T. Or, or it could just be fake. So I don't even respond to the
Well, Kemp
Go ahead, Vi. Go ahead, Vi.
has been giving out a lot of money.
Yes, he has. That's one of the things. That's
I am
one of the big things.
I have been a recipient of receiving a lot of money from Kemp.
Well, I have
But
not.
but he is still not getting my vote.
Man. And the interesting thing about it, I just have to say that people have been following the Warnock Walker situation nationally, almost like internationally. So can you imagine? Well, I know what people will say if Walker wins.
We're done.
Based on
I am moving to New Jersey. That's what I have to say. I am moving to New freaking Jersey, and if that doesn't tell you,
well,
oh my God. I mean, it's I just think we'll be the laughing stock. I just, but I'll leave it at that. I know some of y'all, maybe some of the podcast followers like Herschel, and they're big fans of Herschel, but I'm just not one of them. Go ahead.
Oh, Herschel, the woman beater. Oh, Herschel, the one that put the gun to that woman's head.
It's even beyond that. Just listen.
I know. Hey, as he said, we already have enough trees. We already have enough trees. Catch that.
The rhetoric does it for me.
Oh yeah.
That does it for me.
Oh yeah.
All right, but just know that, y'all. Again, I gotta say a big thanks to Abdul for stopping by. And the information I think is critical, and I know it's beginning of the NFL. A lot of entertainment news, a lot of stuff's going on. We don't necessarily have any stake in the game when it comes down to the Queen, but this information, we are officially after Labor Day. We're closer to a lot of these deadlines when it comes down to voting. So hopefully the information is helpful to you. Again, thank you, Abdul Dosunmu, for stopping by, and definitely I'll have the information in our notes and on our podcast page. I told you, but you got one more comment or news?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
This just in, Patrick and the Mahomes are up 36-7 in Arizona. I can't. What is the name of that team? But they're just losing. That's
Cardinals.
And it's the end. It's just about the end of the third quarter. So I think Patrick and the Mahomes are going to bring it home.
5 touchdowns with Tyreek Hill.
Well, we're gonna talk to after the tea, Coach Art. I got to call Coach Art because as we tape, I asked that question about Dallas and Atlanta because we just had a rough one. It was a rough one today. so I gotta put in a call to Coach Art, to settle me down, if anything, and but. When I talk to Coach Art, we'll get into it. But anyway, let's take a real quick break, y'all, and we'll come back with the tea. So let's do this. If y'all cool with that, let's take a quick break.
Yeah.
And come back. Because I need to kind of shake off. I'm still shaking off the Falcon situation.
Okay.
But I need to make my transition.
Did they have anything to do with someone named Len Dawson that just passed away? Who was he?
Oh, well, Len Dawson played for
the Chiefs.
The Chiefs. He was, big quarterback, QB, legendary.
Responsible for them winning their first Super Bowl.
Yeah. Okay, so that was weeks ago. Yeah, but that has nothing to do with current day. But yeah,
I just wanted to calm you down, get your pressure down.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if anything's gonna help that. But let's go ahead and take a break, and we'll come right back. Hey, it's Tommy B, host of This Is the G podcast. To keep our podcast real and unfiltered, we accept limited sponsorship dollars. Instead, we depend on you, our listeners. Now you can support us and look good buying our swag. Our merchandise store is open for fall 2022. You'll find coffee mugs, shirts, hoodies, and there's more to come. Look for the link in our podcast notes of each show, or go to our page at castropolis.net/This Is the G podcast. That's castropolis.net/This Is the G podcast. Be a G. Support the podcast, y'all. News, politics, pop culture, and that piping hot tea from the one and only Tanya B. This is the G podcast.
Now then, children, it's time for tea.
It's tea time, y'all. Sipping the tea with Tanya B.
Tanya B, what you got? What you got?
Here's what I got. Do you realize this is the 40th anniversary of Michael Jackson's Thriller, the best-selling album of all times?
Killer album.
Yeah, and think about it. Of course, they're repackaging a limited edition. I'm sure the video will be playing in heavy rotation everywhere now through Halloween. But think about it. Who didn't have either a red leather or pleather Thriller jacket? You had a glove, you had some black loafers, you had the glitter socks and all of that good stuff. And I'm not going to give a spoiler alert, but I'll just say go on demand, and if you are so inclined, and check out Harvey Levin from TMZ. He did a documentary that aired this week called Who Really Killed Michael Jackson. He talked about there were more doctors that enabled him than Conrad Murray. And then in this particular documentary, they talked to, I call her his sperm donor, Debbie Rowe. And now all of a sudden, I guess since her money ran out, now she wishes she had done more and she feels sorry. But girl, just go somewhere and sit down. So I just, wanted to recognize the 40th anniversary of Thriller.
And you know what? Vi and I were starting our first year at Troy. We both attended, Troy University together. And I can remember because, you had that commute and we drove to school from Atlanta. And on the radio, want to be starting something was the big record that you'd hear. You were hearing parts of the album. Right. Billie Jean hadn't really hit yet, but they were playing. You could hear "Want to Be Starting Something,"
and that would
people
make you
were really
drive fast.
Yeah, people really were excited. Oh yeah, people were excited. So it was 1982. Yeah, first year, freshman year, big time. Right. What else you got, Tanya?
Okay, I'm going to talk about our celebrity divorce court. Tyrese needs to, again, stay off social media and be quiet. And now he's asking for a new judge in his divorce case because he's claiming that the current judge is biased against him. He didn't want to pay his estranged wife any alimony, but the judge said you will pay child support. And also, why is he trying to take a 7-year-old car away from this woman who needs it to get around with the child? Going to school and things and her activities and things along that line. So Tyrese, go somewhere and sit down. But let me talk to you about old nasty Neo. Now he got busted, right? And now he's claiming that it's his wife's fault that his career is floundered and he's losing money because the album is not selling, and that's because it's just not good. But also, he really has alienated his main fan base, which is women of a certain age. And promoters are canceling dates because people aren't buying tickets. They're blaming on her, but he was one that was out there tootsie rolling and raw dogging those women having sex for money. Now he's got one side baby, and word from the curb is there's a second side baby coming. So I guess he's on his way to being like NBA young dumb boy, having 7, 8, 9, 10 kids by a bunch of women. So I think that Neo karma is getting a hold of him, and now he's trying to actually put his wife and 3 children, who are all under the age of 7, out of the house that they were born and raised. I guess the only place that they've ever lived. So I think that's real janky. So Neo,
that's crazy.
Karma's gonna come and get you. Yeah, but how about he moved the woman, the side piece, moved 3 of them into apartments and paying their rent to be closer to him, but he doesn't want his wife and 3 children to stay in the house where they were basically born and raised. So he's just janky as all hell. So Neo, Mr. I appreciate women. I was raised by a house full of women. Miss Independent. I respect women. No, you don't. So karma ain't no good gonna come to you. That's all I got to say. Everybody kind of remembers certain films that were out in the 90s, one of them being New Jack City. New Jack City is now going from the big screen to becoming a stage play. And here's the cast so far. We've got Big Daddy Kane, who plays the character Stone. Mario Van Peebles in the movie. Alan Payne is back as G Money. You've got Flex Alexander, aka husband of Shanice, playing Pookie the crackhead. That was Chris Rock's role in the movie. You've got Tretch from Naughty by Nature playing Nino Brown, who was Wesley Snipes' character. And the play is going to be on tour for 35 different cities: New York, Houston, Atlanta, LA, Detroit, others. So people seem to be ready for it. I'll give it a shot.
Let me tell you. I think the 90s was the golden era when it came down to film.
And Jungle Fever.
When there was talk about Set It Off. You remember people were talking about a stage play to Set It Off. there was a lot of buzz. So it just depends on how good it is, whether or not it's good at all. So we'll see.
Oh,
We'll see.
it's got to be good. I want to just say maybe we have to put Candy Burris and her husband Todd on the prayer list. You know, she's got these restaurants in different parts of Atlanta, and it seems like for some reason or another, every single one of them ends up being the scene of a shootout. Now she's got a steakhouse called Blaze Steak and Seafood. Blaze is her the baby's name, out there by the airport in Atlanta, and there recently they had an employee shootout inside the restaurant. So it wasn't
Damn,
random
Clay
people.
Cole.
It was employees in the restaurant. They shooting. So
That's Clayton County for y'all who don't
okay,
know.
and that's not good PR for her restaurants, because you know she's got the reality show now based on the restaurants. So
Wow.
I just hope she can work things out. And I just also want to say, Dumb Donkey of the Week is this rapper I call him NBA Dumb Boy. You know, he's the one that's been in jail forever, got a bunch of babies, had the baby with Floyd Mayweather's daughter Yaya. And now I call him Nick Cannon Jr. He's about to become the father of 9, all by different women. But what he did, I think, to antagonize all the others, and I don't recommend you try this at home or anywhere else, getting on social media with a photograph of a woman with some huge diamond ring on her finger, covering up on her baby bump. I said, you know what? No good gonna come to him either. And you look at all these rappers that have all these kids, or these athletes that have all these kids, and then next thing you know, the money gets cut off. Look at the woman that had Terrell Owens, all those babies. Young Thug has children. He's in jail, no income, and he's getting sued by promoters because he's missing dates. And I didn't know Young Thug is getting at least $500,000 for every show.
Wow.
So, public defender can't help you on that, brother. And let's go to some good news. I just want to say, this wasn't in my script, I just had to say this. This young brother from Hyattsville, Maryland, Francis, I always get his name messed up, Chillaboo, anyway, he made history as the first black male to make it to the semifinals at the U.S. Open since 1972 when Arthur Ashe did it. I think that's worthy. We gotta give him some love. Now, I really wanted him to go further. He did eventually get beat, but there are people like, I think he defeated, what was his name? Rafael Nadal. So that was a big thing when he defeated him. And Coco Gauff, when her reign has come to an end. But, just want to say, shout out to them. Please don't give up, because just like Serena and Venus influenced people like Coco Gauff and Naomi Osaka and even this brother Arthur Ashe, it really plants that seed. So I hope they'll keep on and keep mentoring other generations of, black girl and black boy magic in the world of tennis, because we know until that hater Chris Everett closes her eyes, we still have to deal with that part of it.
And just real quick, y'all, if you haven't had a chance to see it, the John McEnroe documentary on Showtime is really good.
Okay.
Because he was
a hothead. He was entertaining.
John, but he was. He had some major demons as well.
He did,
coke, alcohol.
Look, Tatum O'Neal.
Tatum O'Neal, who was also coke and alcohol.
Coke, yeah.
So it's really it shows a side I never knew existed, or a lot of it you knew existed, but there's some stuff that you didn't know about him. It's really interesting. You see the dynamics of he and his dad and his mom as well. So it's a good doc, something to watch. Yep.
All right.
What else you got?
And lastly, I want to close out with congratulations to some of the winners of the Creative Arts Emmys, which were held last week, and our forever president, Barack Obama, received an Emmy. So he's got an Emmy and a Grammy. The late Chadwick Boseman received a Creative Arts Emmy, not for anything to do with Black Panther, but for an animated series that he was part of. And I also want to say shout out to those folks that made history. The NFL Super Bowl halftime show, which was Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, 50 Cent, Kendrick Lamar, Eminem, and Mary J. Blige won an Emmy for their performance, and this is the first time that's ever happened. Not Michael Jackson, not Prince, no Beyonce received an Emmy for their performance at the Super Bowl. So I just want to say 5 on it, all up and through to those folks.
Good stuff. That's excellent. Yep. Let me give them an applause for that.
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
Good stuff. All right, y'all.
What you watching this week, Tommy B?
All right, so here's what's up. I didn't really get a chance to do any reviews this week, but I do want to let you know some stuff that's out. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, I know Vi's probably checked it out. Queen Latifah and Ludacris in End of the Road is out on
Yes.
Netflix. Vi, you shaking your head? Did you watch it?
Haven't watched it yet.
Hadn't watched it yet. Tanya B, did you watch it? Have you watched it yet? That's End of the
Real
Road.
talk. I fell asleep, but I know it was a long day. No, but the
Yeah,
thing
no,
is,
but I hear you.
Really. But I'm going to give it a chance. I'm going to watch it in its entirety, just because
Yeah.
I really love the fact that Latifah and Luda, especially, they really have. Aside from Will Smith, but I think aside from Will, those two have really made a strong transition into the
Yeah.
world of acting, whether it be TV or the big screen. So 5 on it to them. So let's
Yeah,
support
they-
them. Let's support them. Let's support them.
Big time. They're juggernauts within themselves.
And don't honk for
themselves.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Don't honk
absolutely.
for Jesus.
Also, if you haven't had a chance, Pinocchio, Disney's Pinocchio, the new version came out. Tom Hanks is Geppetto. Cynthia Erivo is the Blue Fairy. I think a new child actor, Benjamin Evan, is Pinocchio, and also Keegan Michael Key is part of the cast. He is part of it. But it's getting some good reviews, I think, from those who appreciate it. I'm not, one of them. Also, the other thing Disney-wise that came out was the trailer for The Little Mermaid, which I thought was pretty cool because Halle, from the sisters,
Chloe and Halle and Grownish.
Chloe and Halle, yep, she's gonna be part of it, so that looks great. But the big thing this week, y'all, and this week, go ahead, go to your calendars right now as you listen to the podcast, and mark your calendar for September 16th. That's the release of The Woman King, and it's Viola Davis, and it's directed by really and truly, if not my favorite director, but one of my favorite directors, Gina Prince Bythewood. She did, of course, Love and Basketball, Beyond the Lights, The Secret Life of Bees. If you saw the Netflix smash, The Old Guard, she directed that. So the movie's based on a true story of West African all-female warrior, and Dahomey, I think is how it's said, in the 19th century. But among the cast, it's a great cast, but it's also scored by Terrence Blanchard. So a lot of star power, a lot of money is being put into this. Not only that, but I don't know if you had a chance to see there's an article that came out this week, but it talks about the fact that Viola and the cast, they had to undergo intense strength training, weight training,
Oh, you can tell
sprinting.
by looking
Oh
at
yeah,
it. You can
look
tell by
at the
looking at it.
bodies. Absolutely.
They look like they've been to the Serena Williams School of Muscle Building, because they
Yes.
did not come to play at
They did not.
all.
They did not.
It if you saw the preview, you would agree, and it just looks amazing. So again, if you want more films like this, and I say this all the time, you gotta support them.
Gotta
You
go.
know, and we talk about the difference between mediocrity and a lot of these whack ass films that come out. Some definitely, it's good that they are on streaming, so we don't have to, risk COVID by going to the theater. But this looks to be a great one, and the fact that it's got a great director and Viola Davis is involved in it. Her company is behind this. So set your calendar again. The date is September 16th, and y'all need to make sure you go support it. Okay. Hey, y'all, give me a minute. Hang on. Let me see if I can get him. I'm gonna try this live, so don't go nuts, y'all. Here we go. Let me see if I can get him. Hang on just a minute, y'all.
I can say this just in while you're dialing Tommy B.
Hey, hang on.
Okay,
Oh, okay. No,
Oh.
okay. Wait a minute. Oh, wait a minute.
we got him.
Hey, what's up?
You got me?
Coach Art.
You got me?
Coach Art is in the building. Y'all give it up for Coach Art. I had to do this, y'all. I know it's a disruption different from what we normally do, but Coach Art hasn't been on in a minute, but I am going to do regular updates with Coach Art going forward since it's, NFL season, soon to be NBA season, the heart of, sports. Man, all I have to say, today's game, and I know we have a lot of different states and areas. Tanya's in Philly. You got the Eagles. I just had a Dallas Cowboy fan guest on the show. But the Atlanta Falcons today, can you explain what happened losing by 1 point, dominating 3 quarters, and just falling apart in the fourth quarter. What are your thoughts? Give me some thoughts on this. Give me therapy. Give me some free therapy, Coach Art.
Well, Tommy B, it's going to be rough because the entire direction of the Falcons is wrong. You kind of get what you pay for. You get what you bring into the house. You know, the fan base took a real hard hit today. The Atlanta Falcon faithful, they were, you know, hoping that they would get a buzz and uplift and show up. And you just have to give them something more to have hope about. This typical Falcon collapse, you know, this is brought on with Mariota fumbling, Mariota not being able to access our supposedly number one offensive threat, which is our tight end, who's a deep seam or deep cross runner, you know, never got him going. What we saw was Cordell Patterson being used virtually, you know, almost to death.
Yeah, I mean, he cramped up. They ran. I mean, the running game was serious. To the point where he cramped up. Go ahead.
What I want to see is I want us to get another back that gives us some of the same juice that Cordell does while he's resting.
Okay.
But back to what we have in regards to quarterback situation, the fumbles have plagued Mariota, and he basically fumbled this game away, trying to do too much within the 10. All he had to do was protect the ball, go down, we get a field goal, we win. I don't know what would happen on that last where, you know, it was, you know, fourth down, and that the snap was mishandled, as sometimes they get mishandled. But when you're trying to endear yourself to a beleaguered fan base, that's not the way to do it. But now the positive thing is the 5 sacks, which were all legitimate. The pass rush, the run defense, Kamara, who usually comes to Atlanta and kills us, was on roller skates and really not a non-factor.
Okay. Well, let me say this, man. I'm going to say on a positive note. I don't expect this year is a quote unquote rebuilding year. I'm not expecting them to win many games this year, but I will tell you, Art, out of everything I saw, the defense was impressive. And I will say, I'm gonna say this one thing, and I don't want to, you know, we don't do sports talk, but I do want to say to folks who listen and follow the Falcons, I think Mariota is simply a transition. He's a stopgap, because I truly believe that by midseason, Ritter is going to be the starting quarterback. He's the guy. That's what I have to say. I think he's there to train and get Ritter ready to be a starter. That's my opinion. And
well, Tommy B, I'm gonna look at the report card that I have on Ritter so far.
Yeah,
I got it in the last year's playoff with Cincinnati and Alabama.
Okay.
And when I'm watching the game, it was terrible. I mean, he didn't show any fight. He didn't say, "Hey, come on, guys, we've got the world watching us.
Yeah.
Let's give these guys what we have." You know, basically they rolled over. So now you transition to the NFL, and every game is blood and guts. I mean, we could say what we want to say about Jameis Winston, but when he turned it on and when he had to, he killed us.
Yeah, so true.
Defensively, on that last drive of theirs, after number 13 Thomas got the second catch, you knew that they were going to him.
Okay.
So they, another safety over the top. Everybody else could go man, but AJ Terrell, which is a fine defensive cornerback, he needed some help.
All right, hey, I'm going to say this because we're not, we're up against it, and I just wanted to get you in here for a little bit of therapy, quite frankly, Art, because today was not a good day for the Falcons fans at all, especially considering it was the Saints. That just made it even worse. Let me just say it. I just want to get your thoughts on how many games they're going to win. This is it. No analysis. Just give me your thoughts on how many games they're going to win this year. Give me your thoughts.
I would have to say that we're going to win 6 games this year. What happens is the offense is too fragilely put together. The defense wants, without any assistance or ball control from the offense is going to wither and fade. It's kind of like a symmetric thing, but what we needed to do was have drafted Malik Willis out of Liberty.
Yeah.
Because what happens is the Tennessee Titans fan base has galvanized behind Malik Willis, and they've requested and demanded that he start over Tannehill just based off of what they saw in preseason that excited them, that motivated them, that has them willing to say, we want to see this guy perform.
Okay.
So, can Desmond Ridder turn into that guy after he gets smacked in the mouth?
Yeah.
And dragged down? Because 94 Cam Jordan was not playing around from the Saints.
Let me say,
professional football.
See, all I did was ask. You see, Tanya B, I asked for one. I asked for how many games. He gave me 6, and I'm gonna come back to you, Art, because we're gonna have you on a little bit every week, man. and first of all, let me say I appreciate you taking the time to jump on the show, man, at the last minute. I just needed just a little insight. Notice he wants to do a full show. We may have to bring you back and spend more time with you, man. But we don't do a lot of sports talk. And Vi is looking, because you can't see Vi in the camera, but Vi is chomping at the bit to come in after you, man. So I'm gonna say this, bro. Thank you so much, man. You say 6 games, and I tend to agree with you. And off mic when I connect with you, I want to find out which games and do a follow-up next week. All right. Hey, man, take care of yourself, bro.
All right. Thank you, Tommy.
Thank you.
You be good, Vi.
Right.
Have a nice day.
Y'all take care. Thank you,
Coach.
man.
Thank you, Coach.
Okay.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Coach. You see what I'm saying? That Coach Hart wanted to light.
Does it make you feel a little better? Make you want to move a little higher? Make you walk a little lighter?
But you know what? It's like this, y'all. And I want to say this to everybody who follows the Falcons. Or, I'm happy. You know what I'm happy about right now as I look over, as because I have the TV rolling as we tape the show. I'm happy to see the Vikings up 20-7 over Aaron. That makes up. Aaron Rodgers down 13 points. Does it for me. So I'm cool. I'm okay. And Matt Ryan tied. Can you believe he tied today 20-20 with the Texans? So
still Matt Ryan.
Didn't they
Still
trade
Matt.
him? Is he still
Yeah, what
playing?
I'm saying.
Is he playing? Who's he
Matt
playing for?
Matt went to Indianapolis, and
Still Matt Ryan.
the Colts were down going into, I guess, the end of the fourth quarter, and they came back. They pounded. They came back in the third quarter and tied the game, and wound up the game was ended. The first game of the season ended in a tie, 20-20. So just to say that. But enough of our little NFL. As we take tonight, the Cowboys take on, which is going to be interesting. The Cowboys and Tom Brady, the Tampa Bay.
Go Brady.
So I don't think Brady. I think Brady's going to have a rough season. I think he's in for a rough season.
He cannot have a rough season. He's on my fantasy team. He's got to do great.
No. His wife is giving him the business.
His
She's
wife is
pissed off.
pissed.
He's going to Then
He
aside
gonna
from
rub
the
some
fact,
elbow.
wait,
He's gonna have a good season because she's gonna move out and do her own thing. He can just play ball.
and she
Then
gonna
right
take
after the
half.
season.
You know,
Right.
she's the one that set those cars on fire at the stadium while Tampa Bay, while they were playing New England.
God.
I'm sorry.
Oh, Lord.
All right,
Here
Giselle.
we go. There she go. All right, y'all. Don't forget, weigh in on the people poll. Go to castropolis.net. All the information you need is there. But we'd love your thoughts. If you got any feedback on any of the things we talked about today, go to castropolis.net. Click on the people poll. You can leave a voicemail. Also, again, as I said, our merchandise store, the merch store is open just in time for fall. You can go there, go to castropolis.net, click on This is the G Podcast. The link is there. And, we're ready for you for fall, for the holidays. Again, that's the way you can support the podcast and keep us rolling. Again, Aaron is down 23-7 right now. So 16 points. There you go. That's enough. Aaron Rodgers, done. All right. Any last minute thoughts? I'll go to you, Vi. Any last minute thoughts first before we wrap up?
The beginning was great. Information I needed, I didn't know about. And the coach, y'all delusional. Y'all not winning 6 games this year.
Wait a minute. Oh, wait.
You're gonna win 5 games. They're gonna win 5 games.
Did he say y'all?
You agree with him?
Yeah, I guess. So okay. So how many games do you think?
If we win 2, we're doing good.
All right, you got yours in. Tanya B, any last minute thoughts? Any last minute?
And I was trying to get in. I didn't know the coach was going to answer so quickly, but I just want to encourage everyone to support Reginald Hudlin's produced documentary on Sidney Poitier. I hear it does Mr. Poitier the justice he deserves. It comes on Apple TV September 23rd. September 23rd, Sidney Poitier documentary. Check it out.
Excellent, good stuff. All right, y'all. Hey, with that, you know what time it is. I'm almost just ready to just jump in because it's been such a long time since we had him do it. So he's laughing so hard. Let me give him a minute.
Let him. He can pray over his team.
Just pray.
I said they were going to win 5 games. I was trying to be nice. He said 2, so you better put them on the prayer list.
I'm a realist.
2 games. All right, Mr. Realist. Go ahead and give us the benediction. Here we go. Go ahead, Mr. Realist.
When you refuse to depend on God, in essence, you're saying, okay, God, I appreciate that you're around, but watch me do this. Depending on God may be difficult, but it's the key to victory we need every single day of our lives. Galatians chapter 5, verse 16. So I say, let the Holy Spirit guide your life, then you won't be doing what your sinful nature craves. We all need God, whether you think you need him or not. He will be there for you. Count on him. Don't count on you, let you down. So count on God. Amen. Amen.
Amen, Vi. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate you. And again, big thanks to Abdul
yes.
Dosunmu, YBlock. I'll make sure is ybloc.org. I will make sure that information is on the website and also in our podcast notes. So again, thank you so much. And with that, episode 145 is in the can, y'all. And we are out of here.
Rise up, Falcons, rise up, Falcons, rise up.
That's why they had to get a guy from Africa to do that Rise Up song. Get off my phone.
Rise up.
Give me a break.
Get off my
All right,
phone.
y'all. Peace, and we are out of here. Have a good week, y'all. Have a good week.
Hallelujah.
Good Lord.
Hallelujah.